Yeah. I think the feet and breathing are kind of two similar things in my mind, because the transition takes a long time for a lot of people. If you've been an athlete who, when you're running or when you're doing cardiovascular work, that's the thing you do, trying to switch the way you breathe over time, it's just frustrating. It's like, why the fuck am I going to do this? I'm already performing fine, breathing through my mouth, doing these things. Yeah. There's really no reason to take the time to do it. The thing I guess is kind of fucked with it is because it's not super evidence-based, right? And obviously, anecdotal N of one, when I started making the change from like focusing on nasal breathing during high cardiovascular exercise, for me, primarily jujitsu, it took me a while, but then after about maybe 8 months, my gas tank went from here to here. It's like super chill while doing sparring, right? I don't get gassed. And I noticed that when my opponents I'm still breathing through my nose, I'm still chill, I got them. But it took a while to transition. And it's trying to convince somebody that your breathing or your nasal breathing, if you shift to that while you're doing something like jujitsu or cardio, you won't feel the benefits right now, but in the long term, you will. It's the same thing I noticed with the feet. Like initially, I wasn't noticing much. And initially, I was making somewhat of a regression. But over time, it's like I walk differently. My feet are more active when I'm like not like usually. And I had flat feet too. I actually had surgery on my foot for soccer when I was younger. Oh, wow. But like initially, like my feet weren't really doing much when I'm just standing around or when I'm doing jujitsu. It's like my toes weren't doing much. But now there's so much more awareness into what's happening there. The tendons are thicker, but it takes a while. And again, there's no evidence behind it. But for me, it's very interesting how much of a difference it's made for my performance. Yeah. And I'm someone who already does a lot of athletics that I'm just like, if individuals can just take a step into, doing things more barefoot more often or using their feet in different ways, Gen Pop, no research, but I really think it could make a massive difference for how they move, how they feel, etc. So it's a topic that like, I don't think it's sexy because it takes a long time. Yeah. Like for some people, they'll be like, yeah, we fuck with Vivos, right? But it's not just transitioning into some barefoot shoes that's going to be your thing. It's doing more things barefoot or with that. And it's painful for many. It was painful for me in the beginning. But if you can work your way through that transition period, it could pay very big dividends in the long run.
Yeah, I agree for sure. Like it's for a lot of people, it can be very beneficial. Yeah, and it just comes down to how we communicate that and how we let them know like the broad spectrum of it. And also, like one thing I guess with the nasal breathing is like I found it helpful as well for like jujitsu. Like it helps you calm down. And there is actually some evidence where like the more you nasally breathe, like it's used a lot by deep sea divers. Like the free divers for apnea training to help improve their CO2 tolerance. So there's a lot of actual like physiological mechanisms and reasons why it should be beneficial. People then take that to mean, okay, I should always be nasal breathing. Then we're going to say, well, hang on. If you're sparring in jiu-jitsu, you're doing a bit of drilling, even if it's hard drilling, probably just try nasal breathe as much as you can. But if you're in a comp, you're going to fucking mouth breathe. If you're pushing maximally, you got to fucking mouth breathe. But again, this is where a little bit of information can be a dangerous thing.
Hi, Project Family. I hope you guys are enjoying this bite. Did you know that cocaine increases your dopamine levels by 2.5 times above baseline?
Okay.
Why is this important?
Nsima?
Because, a really cool thing that we learned from Andrew Huberman is that getting yourself into cold water exposure, like the cold plunge, does the same thing. 2.5 times above baseline. And you have those sustained dopamine levels for up to 4 or 5 hours after cold exposure. This is why we love cold plunging so much. I cannot say this enough. It has been one of the best additions to our daily routines. If you can already, just take cold showers. But if you want to take it to the next level, get the cold plunge. And Andrew, how can they do it?
You guys got to head over to thecoldplunge.com and at checkout, enter promo code PowerProject to save $150 off. I keep saying it. I'm going to keep saying it till I'm blue in the face and not blue from the cold, blue from holding my breath. This has been the absolute best thing I've ever done for my mental health. like I said, I can't say it enough. So again, thecoldplunge.com, promo code Power Project, links to them down in the description, as well as the podcast show notes. Let's get back to this podcast.
Because people are like, oh, nasal breathing is the answer. And then they start tanking their performance because they won't let themselves ever mouth breathe. They'll say, oh, even though I'm pushing hard, I've got to only nasally breathe. And then they're going to be so weak. They're going to get to a point where their body physiologically can't perform because they're forcing themselves to shut down the instinct of having to mouth breathe eventually, because you need to. If you're pushing maximally close to your max threshold, you must mouth breathe. Yeah. Even though like it's bad, it's like, well, it's about the context of it.
It's not, exactly. Yeah. It's not bad. There will come a point where you have to toggle it. But what I've noticed is like, even in rolling or in sparring with high level individuals, I can stay calmer while nasal breathing. And when the pace picks up, by the time they're already doing that, by the time I have to open my mouth, like it's
You're
like
ahead.
I'm already ahead. Yeah. So now I'm like, but I'm still more relaxed than my opponent, who's now gassed themselves out, because once they started getting fatigue, their immediate thing was to go from to, you know what I mean? So like, it's a problem, because what we're talking about here is people that have the all or nothing mindset when it comes to applying something. Yeah. So I want to fix my feet. I'm going barefoot all the time. I'm fucking running barefoot. It's like, let's, the thing is, it's not sexy because it's not fast. Yeah. The change that's going to happen is going to take you months, if not maybe a few years, if you've been mouth breathing for your whole life.
There is some good information too on like that zone 2 cardio.
Yeah,
the mathotone method that's been around. That guy's been talking about it from since like the decades. 70s. Yeah. But no one really ever listened to him till more recently. But that is kind of, he didn't research nasal breathing, but it was more like, can you have a conversation while you're doing exercise? And I think that just is a really interesting thing. Like I've never really, done this for excessive periods of time, so I don't know how effective it would be. But if almost all of your training kind of was in that domain of being able to have kind of a conversation, because we were talking about, easing way back on your lifting, you know, and so maybe it could be applied to lifting, and maybe it would have a tremendous benefit, or maybe it's just like maybe it's a little too extreme.
Well, honestly, just like anything, it's all about how far we take it. Right. Like the zone 2 cardio, it's so incredibly beneficial. Like let's say the goal was to improve your conditioning and your cardiovascular health and your cardiovascular performance, aerobic performance. Zone 2 cardio is going to make up a humongous part of that, because the physiological benefits of that. But if you only did that, then you're missing out all the other anaerobic and the aerobic power benefits, the max threshold stuff. So we've got to say, okay, it's very beneficial. How can I sprinkle it in? How do I periodize that in the plan? That's all it is. And it's just like all the mobility stuff from before. It's about where's the gap? How do we fill that gap? How much do you really need? And then how much can you afford to throw in before it starts taking away from other things that we're doing in terms of like max power output or force output or whatever it is. And that's where like nasal breathing, I think it's incredible because it helps relax you. Zone 2 cardio, incredible. If we go too extreme on it, which I've done, it's at the cost of your max power or your max exertion or your performance. And then if we're really trying to drive adaptation in like jiu-jitsu or in bodybuilding or powerlifting, you need those max effort pushes where you're mouth breathing sometimes as well. And if we don't train that because we're obsessed about the zone 2 or we're obsessed about the nasal breathing, it becomes very, I shouldn't say dangerous, but it has a negative impact despite you doing the right thing. And that's where a lot of people live. Unfortunately, they're doing what's right, but they don't have the complete picture around how to fit it into a plan intelligently, or how to appropriate that for their context. And then they go too far in one extreme and they start regressing. And even if it's not for performance, just for general gen pop people, you don't want them to regress. You want them to be able to always be coming back in the gym or exercising in some way and getting some meaningful change out of that to live a healthy life, like beyond our extreme goals, because we are kind of an anomaly as lifters. People forget that. It's like we're an anomaly, and most people who actually need this kind of stuff, they're getting too confused by all these extremes and by our niche. Yeah.
Hey guys, I've seen that you guys have been commenting about how much you hate the whispering outro, asking you to like, comment, and subscribe. So I'm going to whisper again because I know you don't like it. So hey, I know we're bringing you some good content. So like, comment, subscribe, and share it with some friends so we can all help each other out. And maybe I'll stop whispering in your ear. Bye.